So Martin, thank you for joining me today. You're event director at EasyFairs. Can you tell me a little bit about your role?
Absolutely. So actually I've been on EcoBuild or Future Build now for about 9 or 10 years. So was a sales manager, then we're event director, then we actually did a management buyout, took it independent, and now we've got a home at EasyFairs. So my day-to-day job is really curating the show concept, working with the content team, working with how we create the floor plan, the brands that we want involved. Yeah, so I'm in a really sort of blessed position that we can create this amazing annual gathering and this showcase of innovation as well.
You said that you've been involved for some 9-10 years. How have you seen the show change over that time?
Massively. And I think events have changed slightly as well, in that time. I've fought hard to always keep our sort of central conference at the middle of the show, and I always sort of believe that that's the sort of the industry stage. That's where we get people together. What's quite interesting with Future Build is the sort of the floor plan or the show floor flexes in different areas as things evolve. So if you go back to early eco builds, you'd have huge amounts of solar and renewables, and then the feed-in tariffs or the renewable hit incentive would disappear, and you'd have more insulation brands because there was a sort of a push on that. I think what's quite interesting at the moment is that decarbonisation of our gas net, of our energy networks is coming back. So we're seeing, a massive uplift now in heat pumps and biomass boilers. One of the benefits of being Future Build is that we can start looking at stuff that's happening in the materials space, or we could bring in the digital and BIM side of things as well. So Future Build changes every year, and I think it's a very good reflection of what's happening in the industry.
Two values that probably don't change are that of sustainability and innovation.
Yeah.
And actually they're values that sit very well in the industry in terms of where we're going and the journey we're on and this transformational change. Yeah. How important is it for people to come together to help drive that? And you described the show as a gathering. How important is it for people to gather and come together?
Massive. We talk about cross-sector collaboration, all the time, and really that forms our content. It's about bringing people together that can make real change. It's a really simple concept in that respect, but it's when you get the most action and the most benefit out of it. Future is the sort of place where you'll see the people you've been working with over the years and they've changed jobs, and you can have that reconnection. So absolutely the most important thing about the show is actually about joining those groups, and I think we bring that to life in our partners as well. So you see, we work with REBA and ACAN and the different architectural groups, but then we'll bring in people like iStructE and the engineers with ICE, and then we'll work with all the different material groups. We don't necessarily have an editorial voice in that respect. We just facilitate these groups coming together. So our content is always given over to the institutions, the different associations, the different partners, and it's for them. We just provide the stage and try and amplify that messaging.
We're on the road to net zero, 2050. Yes. Seems like it's a long time, a long way away. It's not that long away.
Yeah.
It's a really ambitious target. Are we being too ambitious, or as a nation, I'm a firm believer we've got the ability, we've got a responsibility. Is that target, achievable? Should we, aim high because it's our duty to do so?
It was interesting. I was talking to an architect a couple of days ago, and they described it, and they said, well, sustainability was always a choice. Net zero is in law, it's enshrined in law. We have to meet those targets. That's the fundamental change, I think. And I think we saw at COP, that was a great galvaniser for the industry. And you probably see at the show here, we've got things like the Climate Action Gallery, which is just showing all the institutions with their guidance and their ambition to get to those targets. People talk about 2030, actually, rather than sort of 2050. Is it achievable? Yes, I think we're seeing it now. I think one of the big barriers to that is still cost, but the government are investing in massive retrofit schemes at the moment, and that's social housing. That's where we can really achieve quite large strides. They've been quite bold and done things like, banning gas boiler or boilers, trying to decarbonise the heat networks. That's big strides towards that. So it's a big challenge, but I think everyone's pointing in the right direction at the moment.
But I guess if it was easy, and if cost wasn't an issue, we would be doing it already. So actually there is that argument.
I was working with, we were speaking to the Active Building Centre, and they've done some exemplar projects now showing that actually it is possible to build net zero homes, actually cheaper than building our traditional build. I think Lendlease have just done it at Elephant and Castle as well, so it is. I think the big shift that will need to come is probably the public valuing, a more sustainable build rather than being an extra bedroom or being close to a school.
So you mentioned there about, we are proving we can build new build net zero homes, but the UK's got something like 45 million existing buildings. Are we actually focusing on new build too much, where we actually need to be looking at our existing buildings? And maybe how's Future Build, helping in terms of that retrofit challenge?
Yeah. So we have a whole area of the show dedicated to retrofit. Really, glad to be working with the Retrofit Academy that's headed up by David Pierpoint, and some of our other show partners, people like Bays and UKRI, that's where the funding is at the moment into the big, large-scale retrofit schemes. We've got an amazing talk today by Energy Strong that are now, and I was speaking to them this morning, they're now taking that concept. They've got 100 projects now with the Energy Strong on it. All these are all local authority and social housing projects, and they've got 1,100 in the pipeline to deliver in the next year. So I think large-scale retrofit is the solution, and I think they're focusing in the right place.
One last question. If there was one thing people walk away thinking about from the show, what would you like that to be?
I think it's about being inspired. I think being inspired to do things differently and to drive change. I always say, Future Build should be a catalyst for change. So, the people that you meet here, the talks that you listen to, should inspire you to go back into your day job and just do things differently. We launched a podcast with Dr. Oliver Jones, who I know you've had on, and the whole ethos around that was about talking to these disruptors, talking about the people that are innovating and driving change. And I think that's a wonderful thing, and that's what we stand for.
Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
We hope you found this video from Fabric useful. For more, don't forget to subscribe, browse our playlists, and please like or share this video. Thanks for watching.